Welcome to Higher Density Living. It's Jason Rigby and Alexander McKegg.
What is up? This is going to be an exciting episode. We're continuing in our Orion series.
Yep.
Can you kind of just give a quick overlay of kind of where what we talked about, just a quick synopsis, and then kind of where we're at, and then we're going to have a real practical teaching today.
Yeah, the synopsis here and the history and the context of what we're going to get into deals with a channeled piece of literature, book series, 5 books, from a group of 3 people, and one person was doing the main part of the channeling while one asked the questions and one was recording it. And over the period of many, many years, it was transcribed into these books from probably an upper 6th dimensional collective consciousness. So it's a highly evolved group that has put their mind together, their consciousness together, to help themselves evolve at an accelerated rate. And this 3 group of humans happen to align themselves with them and start to receive information. And one of the points of the book deals with this group called the Orion group, which is a negatively oriented or negatively polarized group. And we've just been discussing the history of the group, how it's described by this collective consciousness Ra, and what sort of effect they have on our world right now and how we think and act as human beings.
Yeah, I just want to say reptilians.
Yeah.
I'm teasing you. Bill Gates.
Warren
Buffett.
Rockefeller.
Yeah. Oh, what's the other guy that everybody... Soros?
Yeah, George Soros. What's that other French
really
family?
Don't like him.
What's the French one?
The main family.
Yeah.
Rothschilds.
No. Rothschilds. Thank you very
Rothschilds,
much. Yeah.
All of that, yeah.
All them reptiles.
It's so funny how and we're going to get into this in a second, how quickly we'll believe something negative over positive. And how it resonates with our vibration.
Yeah, and just on belief.
Like the clickbait and all that stuff, like, watch this, baby get mauled by a tiger, and then it gets, clickbait, gazillions of views.
And it's like, crazy. Oh my gosh, why does everyone want to click on that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to get it kind of in a practical way. Service to self, which is the negative polarity, to service to others, which is the positive polarity. So I want us to kind of hang out in that ionic atmosphere, if that's fine with you.
Well, that's a very good word, because when you talk about something that's ionized, it's charged. Mm-hmm. Very well done, Jason.
Yeah, it's the substrate.
The symbolic behavioral substrates.
Yeah, we just did a heavy duty. This could have been an HDL episode.
Oh, yeah, easily.
The symbols, we did one with symbols on AI, and so we encourage you to...
We got a symbol up here behind us.
Subscribe, yeah, exactly. You can talk about something, but subscribe. You can go to our sponsor, Tartle.co, and subscribe to the TCast podcast on YouTube and also on your favorite Apple, Spotify.
And if you want to listen to those podcasts, HDL or Tartle, you can listen to it in your brand new Mazda, which you picked up from Quality Mazda here in Albuquerque. Shout out to them for being another generous sponsor and supporting the show.
Yeah, so I'm excited about today, because I think it's going to be something that when we look at the negative and polarity, especially creation. So I kind of want to tee you up, if I can, to being who you need to be in this thought form in creation. So I thought that's where we would start there, and we're looking at the negative positive.
Being who you need to be. Okay, so being who you need to be, I guess, to remove that behavioral substrate, just being what you are,
right,
without any subjective interpretation, is to really listen to the spirit. And that's by getting rid of all of those thoughts that might be plaguing the information your spirit's trying to feed to your consciousness. And your spirit is part and parcel of creation. It's a piece of creation. So to be yourself is to be like creation, is to have the characteristics of creation and some of the power of creation, just in a smaller format. That's what you are. So to be you means to really align with this thing here in the center and its creational laws, rather than everything else that sits outside of it that could be, albeit untrue, or falsely identified to your ego that you think is representative of who you are.
Yeah, and so getting into those, this is how I kind of viewed it.
Let's go for it. Yeah, let's go.
So this is what I wrote: creation expressing itself. So now I want us to take that viewpoint of creation is expressing itself through you.
Yeah,
you are a representative of creation. So the ego comes in there, and now all of a sudden you don't have 20/20 clear vision. Consciousness on that level, on that plane, would be pure creation expressing itself through you.
Yeah.
It would just be a prism of creation.
But you can't recognize that representation,
right?
If your ego is coming in too strong. So you need to understand the ego. You have to understand the self, and then you got to understand those primary drivers. Because if the ego's in there,
right,
it is beneficial for creation itself. Why? Because you need something that might be negatively polarized to learn from. The ego acts as a catalyst for actually searching for that unifying piece of spirit within you that aligns back with creation.
Wait, yeah, because I want to take this a step further, Alex, with this whole creation expressing itself, and then you see creation in its infinity and vastness, and then you see our, small microcosm of water, but that light is shining through,
Yep.
So whenever I begin to look at that is real life, that process, but this illusion that we've created, that we take that illusion and we make it reality.
Yeah.
And so now we're living a false sense of our true creational self because we've cut creation off.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, or it's having this, it's having to get filtered so small, micro filtered in. So a little bit of creation, the creational laws, influence our life. But for the most part, we're just said, no, we don't want this. We've turned away, and we're looking at the illusion that we believe is reality.
Oh, you're good.
You see what I'm saying?
Of course.
Yeah. And so this is a very, very thin line that's coming. You always picture those, sci-fi movies with their brains all hooked up.
Yeah.
So we got this one little line, when it should just be a pure stream of consciousness.
A beam.
Yeah, coming into us. And then now we're like, oh, okay, that house is real. The fire truck is real. This is real. When all of that is an illusion.
We're not, this material world,
yes,
we're not looking at it as strictly a learning experience. So if you look at the spirit as something that's timeless, living aligned with creation,
right,
you are living on something truthful that will last forever. But the material world won't last. This planet in its totality will not last forever. It's not designed to. So if you root all of your fundamental thoughts, perspective, ideas, ideologies, philosophies, and behaviors into something that is time bound,
yes,
you've put yourself into this, what you would create as this self-delusional illusion that what I'm looking at, I think, is the truth of all and is real, when really it's a function of a platform for you to learn from. You need some sort of catalyst, and this is only offering you a catalyst to learn from in the material sense, so you can continue to carry it into something timeless, which is the part of creation. It's your spirit itself.
Yeah, which I kind of look at it whenever, because I want to look at it in that, illusion is real. And then ego, which you had brought up, ego becomes that, as creation is pure stream coming through us, then where ego's coming in kind of, now I don't want to use the word blocking, so I'm going to use it this way. It's like when you have those water saver showers.
Yeah.
And it's just, they have so many filters inside of there, that it's only allowing certain amount of water. So I think the ego, when it comes in there, it just puts a filter on that stream.
Yep.
That pure stream of consciousness. There's still consciousness coming through.
Always.
But in that process, the ego is looking at it and saying, this is the truth. These are truth points from my time of existence in a fear-based, primordial. Because that's what's, it's lust, greed, all these things that's what motivates us. Sweet, salt, overly sweet.
I'm letting my ego depreciate something that is timeless and totally powerful and infinite. And I'm having my ego come in and trying to put it into a box and limit its power and limit the understanding from it. And I want to make sure this is abundantly clear. I'm not saying erase your ego.
No.
I'm saying understand it. Learn how to control it. Okay? It is your ego. You're the one that has built it up. So if you have built it up, understand when it needs to come in and when it needs to go.
Well, I was, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but last night, when I was meditating on all this and going over my notes, I began to look at polarity and balance. And then I looked at creation in and of its utmost, that stream coming to me.
Constantly giving.
And then I'm expressing it. So I looked at the ego as a negative polarity.
That's what it is.
And so when I am fully comfortable
with both,
then I become
dead nuts on.
Yeah.
You've now positive neutral equalization of that thought.
Yeah. So I don't want to get rid of the negative. No. I don't want to get rid of the ego.
No.
See, that's the misconception. And everybody's like, no ego.
Or only think positive.
Yeah.
Right. Or if something's negative, eliminate it. Mm-hmm. That's not what that does, right?
Yeah, because I have next point is there is value in polarity.
Always. Polarity allows for a catalyst of teaching. Mm-hmm. If you had no catalyst, if you had no polarity, and you're only positive all the time or only negative, then you have no concept of the other. You have no concept of the opposite. And without that concept, there's nothing to perfect. There's nothing to work on. There's nothing to evolve to without that other side acting upon it. Okay, if we didn't have polarity, when I went outside and I stepped on the pavement, I would fall through it. Mm-hmm. The pavement finds equilibrium with my physical self between how these atoms are interacting with their chemical and electrical signatures. That holds me there. But in between the pavement and my foot, there is a point of equilibrium that stabilizes that world for me and the material and this other thing underneath me. But they have to be there because without there, I'm either falling all the way down or flying all the way up.
Yeah, exactly. And all the way up or to that full end of timeline is sixth density, where there is no polarities. So we're in a learning process as we're continuing to evolve, as you said, through these timelines to that point of sixth density beings where there's no gender, male, female. There would be none of that. There's no polarity.
You don't need to. You don't identify with it, right? You think in terms of unity, where I don't need a potentiating thing like the male,
right?
And I don't need a receiving thing like the female energy. I'm a combination of both. I understand both. I think in that equalized, positive, neutral, equalized format. And the reason I say positive is because the word is positive. Positive creates momentum. It's evolutive, but I'm still equalizing with what's going on. So even though I want to bring both together and learn from them, I still have a positive moving path. There is no retreating.
Yes. And I think I always think of LA traffic systems when I think of this and then merging together.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So this polarity merges together and then finally into the sixth density, but it's just the slow evolutionary process of merging together.
Yeah. In the end, if you look at the law of cause and effect, in the end, they always merge. Mm-hmm. Probabilities at the end have to merge at a singularity. So that's why Ra is always saying there's nothing but the law of one. Mm-hmm. Everything is all unity. And they're always looking at that end game. And so as they take that filter of a creational truth and feed everything through it, they solve for those paradoxes. They take something as a referential point of learning for what it is, rather than fighting it or trying to eliminate it.
Right. And so this is in that polarity, to kind of pull it back down, this is where we get the self-centered, and then I like to use this one, the creation-centered.
Wow, that's nice.
So self-centered, creation-centered. So this one is all ego, negative, 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 thus Orion's.
Yeah, control, do this.
And then this one is in complete unity with the creational laws, with creation in and of itself.
Yeah.
Is that positive.
Which is also accepting of this other side.
Right. So we have a choice because we have free will.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's the choice.
To be self-centered or to be creation-centered.
Right. This picture up here on the screen, we have the major arcana. It's 0 and 22 within its number. In the current tarot, it's called the Joker. And we representatively use the symbol for the HDL podcast. But if you're looking at that, it's one and the other at the same time. Mm-hmm. But the full use of unity through that choice is also representative of light and dark. He carries two satchels here, right? It's twinned, it's balanced, it's all of those very specific things. And that's what he works with. That's where he moves forward. But even though he carries the weight of those negative, dark, negatively polarized sacks of information, whatever they might be representative of, he's still facing to the right. He's taking the right-hand path of service to others, of that creational identification. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think where we look at humanity now, especially in third density, and we look at the globe, and this goes right into this, is there is this pivoting back and forth of ego service, ego, and I think most people aren't, I mean, there's a few, and we know people in this lifetime that we could say that are perfectly choosing evil. They go to the dark side per se. So they're all negative, and they're oriented towards negative,
shooting lightning bolts out of their hands like the Sith Lord.
Yeah, and that's where they want to go. But I think most people are just pivoting back and forth, and I think the ego 80% of the time is winning, and the service to others maybe is 20%. But I don't.
They pivot back and forth, bro, because they haven't learned to integrate both sides. They pivot because they think it's either one or the other, rather than an integration of both. And so even when you're reading the raw material and they talk about Orion as a service to self, as a service to self group, and everyone else is like service to other, it's not the fact that the Orion group is bad, but they are just a requirement of the natural evolution of creation to have its balance. And without them, you wouldn't be able to have that sort of learning. And so it's to accept and to understand. And in doing so, you neutralize something that is strictly only negative, but you bring it into light. You bring light to it.
Well, yeah, and I wrote it in this way. It's bringing light to it, or I said it's an evolution of the sense of self.
That's exactly what it is. A more evolved sense of self is the more interconnected, the more celestial creational thoughts of myself is identifying with the universe rather than strictly identifying with the ego alone.
Yes.
That is a natural and higher evolutive thought than just saying, here's my ego, here's my material things, this is all I identify with. I'm just going to do stuff for myself. I don't really care about anyone else. And that becomes that very negatively polarized path that actually slows that evolution.
Yeah, because if you're in this little self bubble, and you're everything that you're doing is trying to survive, and you have a victim mindset.
Yeah. So
you have survival, where I'm trying to survive, and I want, and maybe you're already surviving, but you need more. I only have a Chrysler new car. I need a Mercedes new car. So there's this survive, grab as much as I can, keep going. That whole service to yourself. Like I deserve these things. I becomes the ego. When it's I
deserving.
Yeah, and so we polarize in the sense of the negative polarization is creating this bubble around us, and that creates separation, lack of unity. So now our thought process is all decisiveness.
Right. It's become
and we're judging things A, B. I pick B. B is who I am. A, B, A. I pick A. A is for me for this. So you see how it begins to, it's like a cat, those old cash registers, and you just add them up, and they go really fast. That's what's like happening right now.
Do you remember that scene in the original Matrix where Morpheus opens up one hand with the red pill and one with the blue? Mm-hmm. And Neo takes the blue pill? Okay.
I forgot, yeah. I'd take the purple pill.
I'd take them both at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Snatch him out of Morpheus's hands and then throw him in my mouth.
Right, yeah.
Like some crazy drug-addicted person.
Yes.
You're not going to take it from me. Try and swallow it as quick as possible.
But I mean, Morpheus is that.
He's the choice.
Yeah, he's the choice, which is free will, yeah.
Right? So when you look at him, he's offering two paths you can go by. But in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. That is a Led Zeppelin song of Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, and changing the road. I love that.
Yeah, I didn't. That was
my
Zeppelin.
next part. Yeah,
that was Led Zeppelin.
Shout out to Led Zeppelin. So when we begin to change the road, when we begin to see, I don't want to be a part of this selfish bubble, and I'm becoming aware of something that is different, and it's a mystery to me.
Yeah,
because I'm becoming aware enough to be able to have this desire to learn. And so then my spirit begins to resonate with me being on the right path, walking from this negative centered focus, slowly moving over to the positive, which creation comes in that moment, off of our free will.
Mm-hmm.
It never, will infuse itself into us.
No, we meet it.
The cause and effect will cause us to feel like it's permanent, but it's not. It's just cause and effect.
Yeah.
But you see what I'm saying? But if we view cause and effect in the sense of based off of our ego, then it looks like there's predestination.
Right. And then you think, this is my destiny.
Yes. Yeah.
What are you talking about, your destiny? You've driven, think of all the choices you made. You drove yourself here.
So
it's not like you came out of the womb and you said, this is my destiny, right?
Right, yeah.
I'm going to be a multimillionaire. The baby does not have that thought.
Mm-mm.
It's cause and effect over time of reinforcing thoughts about what it wants to do. It's the self-affirmation driving probabilities to that point, down that road.
Yeah, so I said this beginning of thought, intention. Thought, intention, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So that baby begins to develop through its surroundings. It's all ego. I always say babies are selfish things around. If you really look at it, they just totally 100% demand attention
all the time,
and they're helpless.
Mm-hmm.
So and we all know people that are so into their ego that they're this way. They're just
all
helpless and demand
always
attention.
A baby.
They never.
They're not evolving.
They can't. The minute a problem happens or a crisis happens in their life, they have to get on the phone and tell everybody about it.
Yeah.
And then they're taking all these different data points and then trying to articulate some way in their egoic victim mentality and say,
cry like a baby.
So, but you're weak, and that's where when we see the Orion group, we see this a lot. That the negativity makes you weak, and there's always a struggle with the power.
Yeah, it weakens the thoughts. It weakens everything about even the physical form, because if you don't have thoughts of strength, you're not going to go to the gym and say, "Oh, I want to pump iron to make my body stronger." So that mind is going to be that first function of actually creating that totality of strength. And through that weakness means you're going to start to have chinks in the armor, where that service to self really can start to play in, and any sort of influence from something negative, whether it be an extraterrestrial or something here in the material sense, is going to have greater influence over that. So the strength of those thoughts, working with something that is unifying and rooting yourself in something that is truly timeless and foundational, will give you that sort of strength of thoughts, those positive affirmations that will lead you to something of a greater, more evolutive good that aligns with creation, aligns more with who you are. So as you begin to take a path of service to others, you realize that in order to give, in order to understand others, I need to meet them where they are and accept them that they are human beings learning also. If I don't do that, then again, I'm on this self where I can even put myself in a hierarchy and put myself above them. But that hierarchy, when people think, up at the top must be the strongest, it's actually it's a weak platform. Because if you're just building up, you're just kind of waffling up here at the top on a very high totem pole. And when the wind comes and knocks it over, that's it.
Yes.
But if everybody meets each other where they are in the sense of their spirit and being a piece of creation, knowing itself, that whole platform becomes flat and very strongly rooted. Nothing can knock it over. It's so grounded in its creational knowledge and truth.
Complacence. I think this is where most people are at right now. And there may be, a little bit past complacence because they're having a desire to watch this podcast and learn.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would say majority of the world, this material world, is just complacent. And I would say that they're vibrationally mute.
Yeah. Well, what happens when you're mute? You don't take in any catalyst. You don't want to learn. Momentum stops. And when you arrest momentum, then things become to fester. There's no growth. There's no testing. If you have no learning, you can't then apply that into any sort of knowledge or wise-based manner of acting because you're not receiving any input. And you're not thinking about that input. You just say, here it is. This is all it is. I'm not going to do anything else. There's nothing more to it.
Yes.
Right? When it's always that path of evolution, because when you begin to stagnate, you turn into that bog, that festering pool of disease and rot that starts to reverse itself and it lacks the value of what life is. And you can't value anything else if you've now become mute. If you're vibrationally mute, then you're just going to get pushed around in any old direction and have to swing with it.
Yeah, and you know, the simulation theory and all that, it's living already to a program. That your ego, you know, for me, it's your ego's created this program, this machine learning that's been happening since you're a baby. And now it's gotten to the point to where you are just reenacting. It's just a continued action that doesn't take any computational power.
No thought.
It just knows that this is what I do. This is what I do. So it's just this program that was created for you with this social conditioning.
Yep.
That is saying, you know, and conditioning, that's an amazing word because it's, you know, time, pressure, it's the water off of the rocks, you know, over time. And that it's just constant, the self just begins to do that to you.
Yeah. And then
then you become like calcified.
Yeah. And you become inflexible.
Mm-hmm.
And when you become so rigid, you shatter. And the smallest stone or a piece of porcelain can come up and break bulletproof glass,
Yes.
which we think is so strong, right? But all that tiny little thing can totally uproot your entire world.
Yeah. Or you can take it out of our, you know, take it from this level and go to space, and a paint chip from a satellite can roll through. A paint chip can roll through a whole spacecraft
with enough momentum.
Yeah, just go right through it.
Correct.
It's just a paint chip. So that's based off of the environment with the laws that it's working with at that time.
Right. And you think that you can protect yourself from these natural laws that occur?
Yeah, exactly.
But it just makes you more fragile. And thinking that you can live in a world where there's no entropy, it lacks that sort of chaos or randomness, is ridiculous.
Yes.
To think that you live in that artificial safety says, I don't want to learn, and if something does happen, I'm pretty much screwed and I can't adapt to it.
Yeah, it's just that velocity that paint chip can move at is the same velocity, that little paint chip is the same velocity in the right environment when you're living the creational laws.
Which is more powerful then?
Yes.
Momentum or stagnation?
Yeah, exactly.
So taking that path of service to others, that right-hand positive path, carrying that momentum is something that is far more evolutive.
Because when you fight the world, you lose momentum.
Yeah, of course. You're trying to stop momentum. You're trying to arrest change. And that's not what you want to do. You want to work with it. No man steps in the same river twice. It's always in flux. So move with the river rather than trying to block it.
Yeah, and I always see if you're negative oriented, which I think majority of people are in this, you know, if you're looking at this spectrum where you're at, and then infusing yourself with this, and I kind of want to get into physics a little bit when you look at this, like a spiritual mass.
Okay,
you see what I'm saying?
That's density.
Yes. Yeah, there we go.
When we say if you're in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh density, you have created this ball, this weight of spiritual mass, this density of light. Not dense in the sense that it's heavy, but there's more of an energetic sustenance or substance that has come to this, you know, this coalition, this grouping of itself that defines how bright it shines. Okay? That's what you're looking at. That's what that density is. So physics in density in the material world defines something's weight. Density and gravity, right? Mass and gravity. And then in the spiritual world, those things don't have weight because they're immaterial, but they can be represented by light or knowledge. It's the depth of those things that defines that density. It's that level of understanding that defines where you're at. And in the end, it needs to be clear that regardless of the path you take, you always end back up at unity.
Yes.
And so some catalysts may be more difficult than the other, or some may be a more energetically debilitating path. It may take twice as long or billions of years as long, but you're all going to end up back at that same creational point of unification. So if you don't want to take a more burdensome, difficult, de-evolutive sense, in the sense of the word path, then take the right-hand path.
Mm-hmm.
Take the one that is positive and evolutive in service to others and aligns more with creational laws rather than wasting your energy trying to punch a hurricane.
Yeah, you have when you're taking that positive path, you have a greater ability to use free will.
Yeah, instead of limiting the free will of your own free will and the free will of others on a negative path.
Right. It's as you begin to walk that service to others, it opens up that, it gets that ego filter out, and now free will is even be able to infuse and go through, and then you become an expression of free will to others, and then in their free will, they have the ability to be transformed.
You
see what I'm saying?
Amazing. And that's the effect of, that golden rule. Do unto others as you would do to yourself.
Right. That's not imposing on free will.
And giving them that free will gives them the ability to continue to think and adapt rather than be told what to think. That sort of flexibility of mind, flexibility of understanding, flexibility of emotion creates that growth, right? Plants on the ground are always going to find the place with the best soil or nutrients to continue to grow in. They will find that. I don't have to tell them where they need to grow. They just know what they need to do. And we let them do that with their own free will.
Yes.
So if you think about it in that sort of biological creational sense, if our sun is emitting light in all different directions, we just choose to receive it over here in this format on the earth in the best possible way we can receive it. But the same amount of energy that's given to the earth is also given in every other direction.
Yes, exactly, 100%.
It's all how you want to receive it with your own free will in your mind.
Yeah, and I want to get into, more practical in the sense of if we want to have service to others and how we can do it in a very practical way. And I thought of a relationship and that view of how I think a relationship shows us, and I want to say this, what I'm getting to, I want us to talk about a relationship and a great relationship because I think it'll help us in understanding our creation relationship.
Yeah, like a relationship with
as we evolve, we have a healthier relationship with creation.
Jason, if
you see what I'm saying?
There should be no difference between a relationship with a human being and a relationship with creation itself.
But that ego makes, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
I know you do.
But that ego is that's what creates a bad relationship. It's like no money in the relationship.
Yeah, no money, or like
the money just kind of.
I need to control the actions.
Yes,
the outcomes of this relationship. Mm-hmm. An amazing relationship would be one where someone understands that the entity or the other human being that they are with, they do not own them. Mm-hmm. There's no ownership. You don't own their emotions, nothing. They are self-sovereign over those thoughts, ideas, emotions, everything that is there. And that when something arises in an emotion that is either positive or negative, that is strictly coming from them. You are not the progenitor of that emotion. You do not control it. So both would have to understand and respect
the
might of the thoughts between both individuals. They would both have to respect the free will of that individual to do as they do. The relationship would be strong in the fact that there is trust in knowing that when they go to do something, you don't have to worry about them doing the wrong thing, right? Or something that may affect one of your insecurities, okay? Or feed into one of your fears. You know that they will always be back here to be joined with you. Mm-hmm. Not because you forced them to come back, but because they did it on their own free will. And every time they do that, they reinforce that level of trust and understanding between the pairing, okay? A relationship is a unity. It is creation. It's that state of hyper oneness. And the best relationships are one that respect that there is a coming together of two to create one, but they are also one in and of themselves.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is the same, you may be talking about a relationship here, but your creation relationship, that connection that you are creation and creation is you, and understanding the relationship in that, that is that part, like you just said, as you hear these creational laws, relationship, it's like, because creation loves you completely, fully.
Regardless.
Mm-hmm. Creation never imposes on your free will.
Ever. It gives you free will.
Yes. And so you can go through each of these things and then see the dysfunctions in your own relationship. Not just with creation, but in your own relationship with other entities.
Right, because in a relationship with something else, you are both co-creating together.
Yes.
So the question is, do you want to co-create in the sense of an evolutive creational sense, or do you want to co-create into something negative? We can both co-create an experience that is negative and hierarchical and controlling, right, and stagnant. Or we can both be progressive in thoughts, emotion, understanding, and everything else that we do through our own interaction. And when we're not together, interacting with others. That's something really amazing. And so when you look at like a pair of people, we're like, what a wonderful couple. Yes, it's the fact that they are a wonderful couple, but it also required the wonderment of each individual by themselves.
Yes.
They also have to be a wonderful person by themselves, not just them also acting well together. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense because it's just polarity once again.
Yeah.
And when you begin to look at those examples that you just gave of not just understanding the unity of each other and what that two entities deciding to make an agreement, and then try in this limited ability that we have, try to become one. And the Bible talks about that. There's scriptures like two flesh become one.
Right.
So
too bad they use the word flesh.
I know, yeah, but it's in
Strictly
Hebrew
material.
It may be something else.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
But when you look at those two people, they're two separate identities at the same time of this one coming unity. So that's polarity. It's the negative positive creating into one.
Yeah.
It's the same.
It's both those meeting each other. And if they're both balanced and positive, negative by themselves and come together,
yes.
Well, that's equalization meeting equalization.
Mm-hmm.
There's no combat. It's pure unity. It's pure creation at that point because it's taking the balance and the best of both sides together.
Yeah. And so if you imagine if we would forget about having nations and forget about having borders and we just had this coming together like that. This is 1, 2 become 4 become 8.
So much power. That'd be powerful.
Oh, yeah. And then this creational energy that would be flowing across the globe.
Yeah.
It would literally heal all of our lands.
And it wouldn't be an energy for control. It wouldn't be power for control.
Because don't you think the trees would respond to that energy? Don't you think that
everything would?
The crystals in those big mountains would just begin
this whole
to
place would be
vibrate?
going. Whoa, whoa, whoa. You just be feeling it,
And that's why I want people, and we'll close in this because I know we're getting. That's what I want people to understand is the potential that you have in this meat suit.
Mm-hmm.
If you will allow that creation to stream through you.
Yeah.
And accept, because it's there waiting for you,
yep.
But it's not going to impose on you.
Think about the balance of your mind.
So it is the responsibility for you to take that responsibility inside of yourself and say, yes, service to others is where I want to go. Well, how do I get there? And it's just accepting. It's accepting what's already been given to you.